Hello.
Hey.
What is your name?
So my name is Leomie Anderson.
Okay, Leomie. What does family mean to you?
What does family mean to me? So family to me, it doesn't have to be someone who's related to you by blood. I think family is kind of a construct in the sense that anyone can be your family as long as you love them unconditionally, that they're there for you. I think that family is just people around you who just make you feel the best about yourself and make you just feel supported. I think family is support system because sometimes you don't always agree with what family have to say, but you respect what they have to say because of the title of being part of your family.
How did you spend your lockdown? Did you pick up any new skills?
Well, my lockdown has been very interesting. It's the longest time that I haven't traveled since I was like 15. And so it was a nice time to really just get to know myself again, just get to relax and just realign myself, because I feel like within our industry we're always just running around, we're constantly on this kind of like rat race. It was so nice to just slow down and just chill out and just be able to take in my surroundings. So it was important for me to spend time with my family. I started working out consistently. Yes guys, I'm fake. I used to pretend that I was working out when really I wasn't, okay? But now it's for real. Now it's for real, okay? So I got into my exercise, which is, for me, a very big thing.
What were your role models when you were growing up?
I had so many different types of role models when I was growing up, but I think that one of the ones that really sticks with me is actually June Sarpong, because she was one of the first dark-skinned women that I saw on MTV presenting, and I was like, I remember the first time that I actually saw her on TV, and I was like, oh my gosh, what, like a dark-skinned girl on MTV? Like, I was like, wow, this is so lit, like maybe one day that I could do this, you know? But prior to her, I don't really remember seeing any British black women on TV. So I think that she's one of my biggest inspirations.
What things have changed for the better in the industry, do you think, now?
Not much. Okay, let me think about this. So much has changed within the industry, but I think one of the things that makes me the happiest is the fact that the industry has become a lot more accepting of different body types and, you know, just a lot more diverse in general. When I was coming up, they would really try and alienate girls, I think, and I think that a lot of people who were in positions of power would try and make young girls feel really insecure about themselves, and would use like body shape as one of the ways to shame young girls and kind of, I guess, have control over them. Because if you're telling someone that they're not perfect until they get to a certain place, until they get to that place, that person is just so vulnerable and they're very susceptible to like negative comments. So I think the fact that now people are like, no, and I think the consumer actually having more power through social media to have more of a say has really helped the industry get to a much better place, because now the consumers are like, I want to see someone who looks like me in this campaign, I want to see someone who looks like me, you know, in the beauty department. And I think that's had a ripple effect, which has just made the industry just so much better as a whole, because we're not just trying to fit into a box of what fashion deems as acceptable now. The consumer is basically saying, look, like, I'm acceptable as I am, and I want to see people who look like me, and therefore models can now feel a bit more free to just be their true selves, because that's what people want to see. People don't want to just see, well, they do want to just see glossy images, but now they want to know a little bit more behind the glossy image. They want to know, is this girl healthy? They care a lot more about mental health. You know, there's a lot more things that people care about. People care about the models and people within fashion and treat them as human beings a lot more now. Still a long way to go, but we are getting there.
Tell us about your activism.
It's so funny because when it comes to activism, or the title activist, it was kind of just like I just started speaking up about things, and all of a sudden people were like, oh, you're an activist now, and I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, when really I just felt like it was just the right thing to do, or I was in a position where, in fact, when I first started speaking out, I wasn't really in any position because I was still establishing myself within the industry, but I just realized that there's so many things that are going unspoken, there's so many voices that are going unheard, and I was getting to a place where people were starting to listen to what I said, and I thought, you know what, like, this is a feeling that I want to pass on to other women, and that's actually really the premise of LAP. LAP stands for Leomie Anderson, the Project, the Purpose. and I wanted to kind of create a platform and a brand that empowered women and really gave them a voice. And that's why it was really important for me to have the online space where women can write about anything, be it sex, mental health, politics, whatever, as long as you're a woman. Because too often are women told to be submissive, to silence themselves, to act, you know, ladylike, or whatever that even means. And so I just wanted to create a space where finally we could just have a voice and just say what needs to be said. So people say that I'm an activist because I've created this, but really I feel like anybody who's in a position of power can do this. That means anyone can be an activist. You don't have to have a big following, you don't have to have like a website and all these sort of things. If you're in a position where there's people who are marginalized or a minority, or in a position where maybe they don't feel that they can speak up, and you are, just giving them the floor or supporting them in, you know, being heard, then you're an activist.
Why is it important to speak up for yourself?
I think it's very important to speak up for yourself, because you realize when you go home at the end of the day and you've been silent, you're at home, you're crying, or when I used to run to the toilets crying, the only person who's upset is you. The only person who's not getting a good night's sleep is you. The only person who feels the anxiety of the situation at hand is you, because you haven't spoken up to defend yourself, and you haven't spoken up to let people know how they've made you feel. And then that means that no one can be held accountable. And if you don't speak up, the only person that you can hold accountable then for your feelings is yourself, because it's like, if nobody knew you felt that way, and even though of course there's so many situations where of course the people should know that they've made you feel a way, but you need to express it, because you need to make people think about how they're treating you as an individual, and therefore think about how they end up treating others. Because I think that when I first started speaking out, it was scary, and I had like agents and stuff telling me, oh, you know, you're gonna get blacklisted if you speak up in the industry. But I'm like, well, there's gonna be black models who come after me, and so are they going to blacklist everybody who has something to say about something that is very important, something to say that is about like basic human rights and basic human decency? Like, no, like I need to speak up so that way the next generation of models feel protected, they feel confident that they can also have a voice. I think it's just important, because at the end of the day, we only have one life to live, and I would rather live it knowing that I spoke my truth than, you know, wearing a mask and covering things up and having regrets simply because I was too afraid to voice my opinion.
Tell us about visiting schools. What was your message to the young girls?
So I had the pleasure of going to St. Martin's School in Brixton, all-girls school, and the conversation that we were having was about consent, because I'd written an open letter on my old blog, Crack Chanukah, basically just telling young girls that they don't need to feel pressured to send explicit images of themselves. I feel like we live in a society where, of course, there's you know, a lot of sexual empowerment and liberation, which I think is very important. But I think for young girls, they also need to know that if you're not ready to do that, that's fine. If you're not ready to be sexually liberated, it's fine. You're a teenage girl, you know. And I just wanted to sit down with them and just have a conversation with them. And when I asked them, you know, like, if you had any questions about sex or relationships or whatever, who would you go to? And, you know, they all said an older sister or an older female cousin. No one said parents, no one said teachers. And they said if they don't have that female in their family, then they're going to their friends. But I'm like, if your friend is sending pictures of her boobs, then of course she's going to say, oh, you should do it too, so your friend's not alone in this, you know? And so I think it was just an important conversation to have with them, because it really made me realize how important it was to have platforms like LAP, like Girls Talk and stuff like that, where young girls could go to seek this kind of advice. And so, yeah, it was actually really one of the things that inspired LAP when I went to school. So, yeah, it was very important for me.
You grew up in the fashion industry. How did you cope as a young model?
Let me think. Okay, so the fashion industry is a very interesting place to enter into, but when you're young, I think that it can actually be very overwhelming, and I think we have to have a very thick skin from a young age, because what people don't tell you about the industry is that, yes, there's so many different amazing people that you can meet, but there's also so many people who, you know, who forget that you're actually a young woman. And so I think being a young girl in the industry, it's very complicated, and it's just not as glossy as people think. When young girls ask me about the industry and say they want to be models, I always tell them, like, as long as you can really face rejection and you really know yourself, then you'll probably be able to, you know, enjoy the industry. But I think that if you're insecure, you're just still finding yourself, as a lot of young women are, the industry can be very cutthroat. But at the same token, it's just its own universe in a way, I guess. And so being young in the industry is a journey of self-discovery.
Tell us about the evolution of LAP from website to fashion brand.
So when I first started LAP, I knew for a fact that I wanted to create this online platform, but I also knew that starting a blog, that's not really got that ring to it. Do you know what I mean? Oh, guys, come and interact with my online platform. No, I wanted to have like a visual aspect to it. And to me, fashion is such a universal language. So, you know, like if you see a t-shirt with Donald Trump's face and it has an X in it, you understand. Even if that person doesn't speak the same language, you understand the message, right? And so I thought, why not just take my passion for fashion, kidding, don't quote me on that, and, you know, kind of merge my activism pursuits with my fashion pursuits. And so my first collection was the Consent collection, which I made for all those young girls, just like different phrases that they can use to say no to guys, basically. And then it kind of evolved once I realized that I actually do want to do a bit more design. I don't want to just do printed t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. Even though, like, when Rihanna wore my hoodie to Women's March, I was like, yes, yeah. But, you know, I was like, it's time for me to, like, develop this idea and develop my own, like, just kind of infuse my own personal style more into the brand. And that's how I started moving more into the athleisure. I wanted to create sportswear that made women feel empowered, confident, comfortable, but also just look fly. Because I think that, like, athleisure is obviously such a huge market, but I feel like there's only a few brands that I personally would confidently wear, like, to the gym, but also wear it out and not go to the gym and just be cool and just be chilling, you know? So I started just infusing my own personal style into the brand, and it's developed to what it is now.
What's next for you and LAP?
So I am going to be going into my first retailer in a few months, which is super exciting. But for me, obviously, if it wasn't for COVID, I really wanted to be able to do like a lot more events for young women. But of course, we can't meet up in real life. So I'm just trying to figure out more virtual ways of bringing women together. So I'm actually starting a new series on Instagram called Lap Live, where I'm going to do Instagram lives with female entrepreneurs, from Jackie Aina to Connor Walker from House of CB. Like, I just want to create things that inspire young women, that just make them think, oh, I could do that, or just take little tidbits of advice. Because if I had had more of that when I was growing up, maybe I wouldn't have made like some of my business errors, or maybe I would have, because it was meant to happen to me so I could pass it on to other people, you know. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Very exciting. Thank you. Wonderful.
Hey.